Hello and welcome to Sunday Politics, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma, bringing you up to speed with all the big happenings in politics and in the polity. That's the responsibility we've taken on, and we do it with joy. I hope you had, or you are having a great weekend. It's a brand new week ahead of us, and I always try to remind everyone that it's May. And it's significant for everyone to remember that it's May in Nigeria, because this is the month where we try to remember and remind ourselves of all the promises that were made ahead of May 29, 2023 by everyone who was inaugurated as governor or as our president, Bola Tinubu, telling us what he will do or what they will do when they come into office. So call it a month to give account of their stewardship in that sense. And who else is supposed to ask them those questions but you? So I have an honor and that responsibility of asking those questions on your behalf whenever they show up to be asked those questions as far as the polity is concerned. So the other day I was just looking through, when I remember it was the month of May, I reminded myself that there's an 80-page document called the Renewed Hope Agenda put together by the APC for Bola Tinubu, or Bola Tinubu is President Bola Tinubu and his deputy put together that document to say, this is how we want to lead Nigeria in the next 4 years. They talked about security. They talked about digital economy. They talked about the economy in general. They talked about the judiciary. They talked about politics, unity. There are so many things in that document, 80-page document. But as we graduate towards the D-Day, which is May the 29th, 2025, the official day where they were handed over to, we're going to dust up those books. But as we sequence ourselves towards that direction, we'll continue to ask those questions that are necessary. You know, right now what's going on in Nigeria, like an avalanche of defections from other political parties to the APC especially. But as we speak, I can tell you for a fact that the PDP governors are troubled. The PDP itself is not taking this lightly anymore. With the Borowere, the governor of Delta State, his deputy and others defecting to the APC, literally the entire structure moving with him in that sense. That state is what people look at as default PDP state, just like they look at Lagos as default APC state. So that's a big deal. So they are not taking this lightly. We understand the governors on the platform of the People's Democratic Party are meeting today as we speak. So when we get heads up as far as that outcome is concerned, we will let you know. That's to tell you that the politics of 2027 has actually started, in case you don't know. So today, I'll be talking to politicians, those who are still serving, those who have left office. I'm also going to be talking to analysts as well. We're going to bring their expertise in that sense to some of the conversation we'll be having, from politics to security, to the economy and all of that. But let's tell you one of the big things that has played out today, that Senior Advocate of Nigeria and rights activist Mr. Femi Falana is asking the EFCC as well as the ICPC to investigate what he considers alleged criminal diversion of the $3.4 billion loan obtained from the International Monetary Fund by Nigeria to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. The senior lawyer, via a statement on behalf of the Alliance of Surviving COVID-19 and Beyond, known as ASCAB, is calling on the IMF board to probe the alleged deliberate refusal, those were his words, of its management to ensure that the emergency funds were used for their intended purposes. He also wants the IMF to suspend the collection of scheduled charges, including net charges, basic interest, administrative fees amounting to what they call the SDR 125.99 million. In dollar terms, is a bit in their billions, pending the conclusion of its investigation. Remember that last week, the International Monetary Fund confirmed that Nigeria had fully paid its principal, as the $3.4 billion. It was a 5-year loan that was supposed to be paid this year, but there was a moratorium period of 3.5 years. So, but Nigeria has done quite well in paying that loan. So we must give credit to the government for doing that. Now, so he is talking about all of that. He said, although Nigeria's principal balance stands at zero, according to the IMF, the scheduled charges, including net charges, basic interest, and all of that, amounting to the amount I stated earlier. So Femi Falana said, fine, it's great that we have paid our loans. It's fantastic because debt burden is choking, and they were able to manage it to the point that we are not defaulting in that sense. But whilst we celebrate the debt being paid, what about what the debt was actually used for? And that's a valid question. $3.4 billion to support the economy during COVID season and to fight COVID and to manage the economy and all of that. So we need to ask questions to the people who were in charge of government then and the people who are in charge now. Can you give us an account of how 3.4 billion was spent? And that's a credible question. Okay, yesterday in Lagos here, there was local government primary election for the APC. And we found that we got to know that at least 5 incumbent chairmen in Lagos State lost their bids for a second term in the offices as far as that election was concerned, held across the 57 LGAs, and Lagos has what they call the LCDAs. The affected council leaders included those from Koka, Aguda, Agbado, Okeodo, and several other places, including Otiosa, all of whom failed to secure their party's nomination for the forthcoming local government polls, which will be taking place in July. Now, the party primaries conducted at APC Secretariat at Acme were overseen by the Electoral Committee led by Babatunde Ogala, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria. Ogala announced that while 4 candidates emerged via consensus, other aspirants contested in a competitive electoral process. Ogala commended the delegates for their cooperation and conduct, describing the exercise as transparent and credible. He, however, advised dissatisfied aspirants to channel their grievances to the party's appeal committee with verifiable evidence. So there's always that appeal committee to say, okay, exactly what did we do wrong that you want some level of, redress in that sense. So the party has said, this is how to go. But the big news there is that there are 5 persons who wanted to be re-elected or wanted to recontest. The APC has told them, I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. So let's see how it plays out eventually. But we also have news for you from Rivers State. Yes, sometimes we rest from Rivers news, and we rested for a bit. But there's something coming up. But this is not a controversial one. The suspended governor, Similola Ifubara, is urging his supporters to tone down their, what he considers confrontational approach to the state's political situation and instead follow his own example of peace and restraint. Mr. Ifubara gave the advice on Sunday night while speaking at a night tribute organized by the Rivers Elders Forum in honor of the late elder statesman, Chief Edwin Clark. I think that event is going on. The event was held at the Royal House of Grace Church. Okay, it happened earlier today, I should say. He noted that some of the remarks and actions made by supporters were unnecessary and contrary to his personal principles of pursuing peace in the midst of the political crisis in the state. I'm saying some of the things he said. He said sometimes wonder if such people ask themselves whether he's still interested in the office. So that's an interesting point. Mr. Ifubara added that he now enjoys peace of mind and appears even healthier since stepping back. He emphasized the importance of drawing inspiration from life and values of Chief Clark, particularly his commitment to peace, unity, and elder statesmanship. So there has been a series of events in honor of Chief Edwin Clark, and comments and remarks have been made to that effect. And some of those remarks, I may have to revisit them in the course of the program because they generated controversy that also generated responses. Now, President Goodluck Jonathan joined the memorial event that held, I think, in Lagos, Abuja, but the memorial lecture that held, had said that, look, there is a way to get a one-party state, but if it's by political machinations, those were his words, then it is unsustainable and not a right. Because there has been fear that the avalanche of movement of People's Democratic Party member and other members of other political parties moving to the APC as a ruling party is not healthy for democracy in the sense that if we now have a one-party state, how do we have a viable opposition as an alternative in that sense? He said, well, if you want to have a one-party state, there's a way to go about it. But if you go about it by coercion or whatever way, but the word is machination, whatever it means in that context, it's not going to be right. Well, it was not the only one that spoke there. Also, Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the last election, also spoke and said, look, by virtue of what the founding fathers and some of the people who struggled for what we enjoy as democracy today have fought for, in his views, their labor is in vain. And he gave his reasons. He also had a backlash when he went to Johns Hopkins University, and he spoke about the state of our economy and the things we do and political leadership and its failure. Well, he got a backlash as well from Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. I was actually surprised because if you know Babajide Sanwo-Olu is not particularly his character, to get involved in such back and forth. But he spoke against it, and there was this torrents online at the end of the day. But what I'm talking about is the one he said at Park Clark's event. At that event, when he said the Labour of Heroes Party is not an event, well, Gospel Akpabio, the Senate President, responded and said, hey, you can't say that. I disagree with you. As a matter of fact, sort out the challenges in the Labour Party, which he described with a term I can't use on right now. Sort out your party problem before you can now lead Nigeria. So those are some of the fireworks that emanated from within the week as far as the polity and politics is concerned. Nigeria also, the federal government has also pulled out what they call the Nigeria First policy in that sense. I'm looking at all of this so that you see the picture of what is playing out in the policy and some of the things that will lay foundation for our conversation. We'll get started with the conversation. Nigeria First policy, simply saying that to the BPP, Bureau for Public Procurement, like, going forward, if MDAs want to buy anything, purchase anything, make any form of procurement, whether it's goods or service, you look at Nigeria first. If you don't find it in Nigeria and there's a need to go abroad, you need a waiver in that sense. So people are saying, will the president eventually now begin to look at things differently from his own, from his cars, from all the things we see, from will the senators now start driving Nigeria First cars? So these are some of the issues. But we'll take a quick break. When we come back, the northern governors had actually met with the traditional rulers, and they're making a renewed call. That's where we start the conversation from. A lawmaker and a political analyst will join me on the program in just a moment. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Let's talk to our guest, Dajon Bagos, former member of the House of Representatives, joining us from the UK, as well as Mr. Jide Ojo, public affairs analyst, also joining us virtually. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the program.
My pleasure. Thank you, Geoffrey. Yeah, evening, Nigeria. Yeah.
All right, Honorable Dajon, let me start with you quickly. There's been a communique from the Northern Governors Forum. They had a meeting with traditional rulers, and one of the things they've re-echoed is to the effect that whatever has to do to expedite this state police issue, because let's start from security, which is the most fundamental in terms of any governance in that sense. Before we talk about economy, we need to be secure first. These meetings have always been held. In fact, there has been this back and forth over whether or not the issue of security summit is even necessary, just maybe another talk shop in that sense. The question we continue to ask, why is it difficult to handle the issue of security in the North?
Yeah, well, the meeting of the Northern Governors is better late than never. But handling the issue of insecurity in the North, I've always said that in handling the issue of insecurity anywhere, if you have the wrong diagnosis into a certain matter, definitely you will not get the result. In as much as the North has been bedeviled with the issue of insecurity, you look at the reasons and issues around it. If we still, today we have state police, like all of us have been clamoring for, will the issue of insecurity still stop in the North? In as much as it will reduce to a certain minimal level, yes, with a lot of police stations and prison filled with the Northerners. But as Northern governors are looking at the issue of insecurity, it is high time that Northern elites sit down with the governors, with traditional rulers, with politicians to tell ourselves the truth. That why you have high level enrollment in education in the North is overwhelming. So as long as you don't have most of the Northern youths in school, and as long as you have high level of poverty in the North, the issue of insecurity will persist because the literacy level is low. But unless you look at the foundation, so the foundation is poverty. The foundation is the low level of literacy. We look at these areas, Remember, many years ago, during the Sardona era, Sardona was going around villages and meeting parents that please enroll your children in school, enroll your children in the military, enroll. So what are the northern elites today doing? And apart from going into politics, apart from looking at how to rule Nigeria, how so effective have we been in addressing the issue of poverty, in addressing the issue of low enrollment into educational institutions, making sure that the schools are even well equipped and provision of school materials. And when you start addressing them, you are going to cut that level to make sure that the youth and the next generation that are coming from behind are taken care of. Then the ones that you are already endangered, you start looking at how you can rehabilitate. You start looking at how you can use the security apparatus to be able to address the damage that is already on ground. But if you just come in straight, jacket in, without addressing the issue of poverty in the north, it's going to be a cycle, yes, the issue of insecurity, because what we have in the north is terrorism. What we have in the north is what we call the Boko Haram, they don't want education. What we have in the north is banditry. But what you have in the south, you have kidnapping and you have agitation. But in the north, the level of insecurity in the north, what are they agitating for? So when you now diagnose the two different of the kind of insecurity that we have in the sixth geopolitical zone of Nigeria, you'll be able to address it adequately. But you can't take the level of insecurity in Lagos and you want to address it in Borno. It will not work. So as much as we are all clamoring for state police so that the governors will take charge of insecurity in their domains, the federal government needs to come with a tactical and non-kinetic approach of addressing the poverty insecurity, the low literacy insecurity. These are all levels of insecurity that we need to look at in the north. If the governors will sit down and look at those cycles of insecurity, then the next generation will be better off than this generation in addressing the issue of insecurity. But if we just come with state police and we ignore the issue of poverty in the north, then we have not started yet.
All right, let's take it to Mr. Ojo. Mr. Ojo, apparently, Honorable Dachong is saying might is insufficient. In fact, I'm just processing this, that look, 10 years ago, this was exactly the same kind of conversation we had. Exactly 10 years ago. This is why, or part of the reason why Goodluck Jonathan lost election. Failure to secure the people. Remember in 2014 when those girls were carried in Chibok. So 10 years after, we're still having the same conversation. So there's issue fatigue. So in your view, what else can be done beyond talk, talk, talk? If for 10 years we're saying the same thing, sometimes with the same set of leaders, change at different points, how do we progress from here to really give lasting solution? Because right now everybody is touting state police, but is it going to really solve the problem?
Thank you, Geoffrey. Good evening, Nigerians. My own take is that it's not just going to be one size fits all to solve our existential security challenge. We need to do a lot more in terms of infrastructural development, employment opportunities, creating an enabling environment for micro, small, and medium enterprises to thrive. While I agree with Honorable Bagos about the need to fight poverty, but what are those things that brought poverty in the first place? It's not just illiteracy that is a driver of poverty. What about the literate northern or literate Nigerians? How many of them have been gainfully employed? I wrote in my column in the Punch last week about the plight of Nigerian workers. Many workers are poor. They are working, but they are poor. And these are people who should ordinarily be classified as middle class. People who went to school, some of them with PhDs, some of them professors. How have they fared under this kind of economy? So it's not just about literacy for literacy. We must do something about unemployment, because when you are unemployed and unemployable, there are two different things. You could be unemployed even when you are employable, and you could be unemployable because you have no skill set within which with which to get a gainful employment. But my own argument is that if those who have gone to school are not better off than those who didn't go to school, then there's a problem. Jeffrey, you possibly have heard people saying school is a scam. School is a scam. Why would people say school is a scam? Because they have seen their elders, they have seen their neighbors, they have seen their family members who suffered to go to this school and graduated and had no gainful employment years after their graduation and youth service. So it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. I am more for state police. We need to have more boots on ground. We need to involve technology in the fight against insecurity. Other clients are already using satellite imagery. They are using drones. They are using all manner of sophisticated technological innovations to fight insecurity. But I do understand that our solution does not lie only in kinetic deployment or kinetic applying kinetic forces. We have to do both kinetic and non-kinetic. So I fully endorse the fact that we should encourage people to go to school. We should encourage government to fight poverty. But I'm more concerned about the drivers of poverty. And I'm insisting that it's not just illiteracy that will banish poverty from your life. If it were to be literacy, there should be no professor who is poor. There should be no PhD holder who is poor. There should be no first and second degree holders who should be poor. But you find out that even in northern Nigeria, there are so many graduates that have been produced, but who are seeking employment, and because they have nobody to facilitate this employment opportunity for them, they are wallowing in added poverty. Some of them have tried their hands on different skills, but it's not working. And that is what has compounded the issue of banditry, kidnapping for ransom, and insurgency. So for over 10 years of Boko Haram insurgency, I have worked in some states in the north, and I know that northern education, there have been very many interventions on the part of UNICEF, on the part of USAID, on the part of European Union. Many of them have capacitated NGOs to help with enrollment, to help with establishment of schools, to help with even this homegrown school feeding program and all of that. But let's audit even the homegrown school feeding program. The part of the homegrown school feeding program was to lure pupils to children of school age to go and enroll and go to school. But when they go to these schools, the infrastructure in the school is very inadequate. It's in deplorable conditions. The students and pupils are studying under the element. Would you believe that in this FCT, where I'm talking with you, in FCT, teachers are going on strike. Teachers are going on strike. Why should that happen? How do you want to encourage
let me come in here because of time. My sincere apologies.
The FCT are still going on strike.
If you can hear me, let's take it to Honorable Dachong. Honorable Dachong, one other part I would like us to speak to, and we may just have to dwell on security for a bit, has to do with that sense of justice in terms of administration of justice, because we've seen situations like what played out in Uromi, where those hunters were brutally murdered, and it was a painful scenario, brazenly killed by those people. And then we saw the governor travel to, I think, Kanu, and then trying to use diplomacy and resolve all of it. But a few things came out of that. People were saying all of the killings that had happened before that culminated, because there's mutual suspicion on all sides. What happened? What did the governor in that sense do to mitigate. It looks like some lives are more valuable than the other. So there were all kinds of nuances. So my question has to do with what can we do to begin to make everybody feel like the rule of law is for everyone, that nobody is more Nigerian than the other, however you want to look at it, because everyone has a case against the other person in Nigeria.
It comes from political will, Geoffrey. And in that political will still gets to leadership recruitment. From the issue of poverty we were talking about, from the issue of insecurity we were talking about, from the issue of even getting justice to the people that were victims, all comes to leadership recruitment, political will of whosoever is a leader. And I always, as long as you don't have the right leader in position to be able to drive the process, to ensure that justice is being given, to ensure that victims of injustice get the right justice dispensed, as long as we don't have issues that today that perpetrators are in jail. And that's why I always say that, look, they will always tell us that perpetrators will be brought to book. The book of the perpetrators is empty, but the books of the victims is already filled up. So as long as justice is not being given, as long as we don't have leaders that yes is yes and no is no, as long as we don't have leaders that are not religiously or ethnically sentimental, these issues will continue, Geoffrey. I will always give a case of example with us on the plateau, that where you will see that perpetrators are either being arrested or suspects are being arrested, instead of them being arraigned within jurisdiction of the crime, they will be taken to Abuja within 24 hours, and within 48 hours, they will disappear into the thin air. Maybe after 2 months or 3 months, you will see them running around the streets. So, because there's someone somewhere who says, this is from my ethnic group, or this is from my religious group, this is from this, or this is my cousin to my great-grandfather, release him, just a phone call, the person is being released. But here on TV, we will see that a former president of a country is being jailed. Here you will even see here in the UK that the former prime minister, because he did not wear seatbelt, he had to pay a fine. So how can we ensure that people get justice when wrong is being done to them? So these are issues that diplomacy, because of certain things that, for instance, the governor flying to another state for bilateral relationship, but what happened? Why we seen the governors saying that the perpetrators have been jailed? Have we seen the governors saying that this is the person or this is the trial that is going on? But we always wait just for defense against reprisal or our people. As long as we are talking our people, we are not talking about Nigeria, these issues of injustice will continue. Because it's even when you come down to the family, even down to your family, my Bible tells me that if you don't rebuke your child will become something. So as long as, even as a nation, justice is not being given, people are not being rebuked, the lawlessness will continue. It's a simple fact that people already know that nobody is jailed. They can do whatever they can do, and somebody will make a phone call and go free. It will continue. You hear that someone will say, I will see who will touch you. I will see who will do this. As long as that attitude, with lack of political will to do the right thing, I can tell you nothing will happen. It will continue like that. 2027 will come, perception, people will just come that, this president can do this president can say. We all vote leaders according to perception, according to ethnic.
Okay, Honorable Dachong, let me take it to Mr. Ojo.
According to religious. So these are the issues, Geoffrey, that as long as we don't take the right steps in leadership recruitment,
let me
the
come in.
Will continue.
We're due for a break, but Mr. Ojo, I would like you to have your take before we go for that break. If you can do it in 1.5 minutes before we go on that break. This same issue of the lowest hanging fruit being the rule of law. I remember the Deborah issue, I think, in Sokoto, and the case was abandoned due to the lost that case because of lack of diligent prosecution. And if you look at what was filed, it wasn't necessarily murder in that sense. I would like you to speak to the issue of justice and the rule of law in 1.5 minutes, if you will.
Geoffrey, the truth, as I know it to be, is that we have been talking about justice sector reform for decades. And a lot has been done, but like the Honorable that spoke before me said, there is issue around culture of impunity and lack of political will for the right thing to be done. It's not as if we don't have the statutes, we don't have the laws. We do have the laws. In 2015, one of the legacy legislation of former President Goodluck Jonathan was Administration of Criminal Justice Act, ACJA. But that Administration of Criminal Justice Act, which was meant to expedite the criminal prosecution within about 6 months, have been observed in breach. I really do not have all the answers why that has been so. Why Administration of Criminal Justice Act have been very ineffective, because as we know, justice delayed is justice denied. Aside from bigmanism, aside from political interferences, which we know are very true reflection of our justice system, there is also the issue of corruption. There are allegations and accusations of judges receiving bribes. You remember the very popular poem by poet laureate, Professor Niyo Shodari, Mr. Joe, where should I keep your bribe or something? So we do know, and then National Judicial Council have been doing a lot to weed out the bad eggs within the judicial sector. But we know that access to justice is still a big challenge in Nigeria. And access to justice is not just limited to court. We are talking of police, from police arrest, investigation, prosecution. You just cited the example of lack of diligent prosecution. Even in our anti-corruption cases, many cases are struck out for technicalities or lack of diligent prosecution. So we have to reform the entire justice sector, from the police to the court system down to the correctional centers, which we formerly call prisons. Because this whole access to justice, if you don't take it as a value chain and reform this entire sector, there is that tendency for the wrong message to be passed that this is a country where everything where justice could be for sale. And when you have that system of justice for sale, you will always have people resorting to self-help.
All right, Mr. Ojo, we're totally out of time. We must thank you so much. It's an ongoing conversation. It's just painful. While we're having this conversation, it just hit me that we've been on this for many more years. I just referenced 10 years ago, and we pray that 10 years from now, we're not still going to be having the same exact conversation where we are now. Dachong Bagos is a former member of the House of Reps. Jide Ojo is a public affairs analyst. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. I appreciate your coming on the program. Thank you, sirs.
Thank you, Geoffrey.
Well, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we will be talking politics. These defections, counter-defections, all of the movement. The PDP governors are meeting as we speak. We're going to look at the plethora of issues as far as the 2027 election is concerned and what is playing out among the political class. Maybe touch on the economy somewhere in between all of that. In just a moment, join us again. Welcome back to the program. Let's bring in the National Chairman of YPP, Bishop Makri, joining us from Awka, the Anambra State capital. Also, member representing Basa, and Jos North Federal Constituency, Daniel Asama, also joining us virtually. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jeffrey.
All right. Mr. Makri, let me start from your state. Let's talk about the politics. I just saw a message. I think the governor was actually at the, I'm looking through that message now, it was actually at that event in honor of Sir Edwin Clark. And one of the things we heard that he said he sometimes wonder if such people ask themselves whether he's still interested in the office. He's talking about some of his supporters toning down some of the things they are doing. Let them look at his own disposition as a governor. He's a man of peace. He's shown restraint. And he's even asking, look, have you even asked whether I'm still interested in still being governor? When you hear such things, you're from Rivers State, although you're the national chairman of YPP. What hits you? Bishop Amakri, that's for you.
Geoffrey, I don't know what's wrong from the city of Oka here. I didn't even hear almost all the question you asked.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Breaking.
Can you hear me now?
But can you just hit to the point?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
I honestly didn't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I'm saying the governor of Rivers, the suspended governor of
Rivers,
I can hear you now. Told his supporters that calm down your confrontation and whatever it is you're doing to support me. But have you even asked whether I'm still interested in being governor? When you hear that from the suspended governor, what do you think?
Appreciate the fact that you are the man that, wear the shoes is already telling you, look, it is my business, it's my own shoes, not your shoe. But he has forgotten that. I think maybe he saw a very beautiful shoe and asked that somebody should go and get those shoes for him, because ab initio he had a choice. Nobody coerced him into this leadership position. He had a choice to say, I don't want, to actually take this responsibility. But the reason why I don't want to talk much about this issue is because when they were having, their own agreements, I can tell you that 80% of the people actually fighting for both sides now, many of them were not there. Okay? But that is not to say that we're happy with the situation that we find ourselves today in Rivers State in terms of the state of emergency that has been declared. I do not think that Rivers people deserve that state of emergency, and I stand on the part of the people who are against that this state of emergency actually shouldn't have taken place at all. I stand on that part because we're in democracy, for God's sake. Rivers State, what is happening? Let me even give you an example. What's happening in Benue and Plateau as we speak at the moment, and not to talk about states like Zamfara and some parts of the north, it's not close to what they say is happening in Rivers State. And suddenly we just woke up one day and already a state of emergency is declared. For what reason? Maybe for interest reason, for state capture. Some people want to capture the state and use that to continue to suppress the people who actually really want liberation for themselves. So I stand on the part of the people who are against this state of emergency, even though if the governor is saying, the governor can be on his own. The governor is just one person out of Rivers people. Okay? So the Rivers people have the right to say, look, we'll continue to fight for our right because we came out to democratically elect someone. Whether the person was a PDP member or was APC or whatever party the person belonged to.
All right,
at this point, what we are saying is
Makri,
that the right thing should be done.
Just
and some few persons cannot be...
Just go ahead, please. Land your thought. Go ahead, please.
Some few persons cannot be the reason why Rivers people will be suffering what they are suffering today. So that's my disposition.
All right, let's take it even further. I know we've spoken about this extensively, but one more question that has to do with Rivers State. I really did not want to bring Rivers State into the conversation because we've talked about it. Sometimes it's very exhausting to talk about. Thank God that we've not talked about it for a while, but because of this latest thing that happened this morning from the remarks of the governor, just one more question. We've also found out that since the sole administrator took over, he's not been oversighted in that sense. In fact, they've tried to schedule a meeting. There were issues. They couldn't meet. Eventually, when they met, he told them that, look, I'm just settling in. Let's fix another time. And then we have the Senate committee also coming in, setting up their committee. And when I looked at the list of the Senate as well, I saw that out of the 20 people led by Okpeyemi Bamidele, about 15 or so of them, I stand to be corrected, are members of the APC in that sense. So that gives room for all kinds of political conjecture. So let's talk about accounting for what has been done so far, because we'll leave the issue of declaration of state of emergency and suspending the governor. Let's leave it to the court. So talk to us about the sole administrator not being able to give account of whatever he has done in the last few weeks, almost 2 months now, if we'll say.
I wish you could even excuse me in this issue of a father and his son that are fighting when some of us were not there, when they were holding their what I would call arrangements, okay? I am of the YPP product. My DNA is YPP. And whatever they are doing today in PDP and APC is their business.
Yeah, you're from Rivers State.
The issue
That's
is
why
that,
I'm
yes,
taking the
I
liberty.
agree
You're a
that
Rivers man.
the state is not in her very good times. It doesn't, yes. I just told you earlier, I stand on the position of those, the proponents, that democracy should thrive and that democracy should return. I stand on that part. But as regards to whatever thing, because we all know what has played out, it's about interest. Some persons have an interest and they have to push an agenda that somebody has to be taken out of the way so that somebody will come in, and at the end of the day, people will continue to pursue their interest. So all the thing that is playing out, not even only in Rivers State today, as you speak in Nigeria, is just all about interest. Until we have to weed away persons who really are not of the interest of the masses, if we do not shatter that downward spiral to nowhere, ensure that we demystify that dynasty that today stand to be an impediment to the growth, to our economic growth. Look at what is happening today in Nigeria: economic inequilibrium, political imbalance, social catastrophe. People are suffering up and down.
Mr. Macri, let me see what I can
Hunger is ravaging everywhere, and we're busy just being distracted by some few politicians.
Okay, let me bring in Mr. Sama so he can have his say on the program. We've been trying to get him due to network. Mr. Sama, let's talk about these defections. When the APC have been confronted with the issue of defections, that they are coercing people, they are blackmailing people, they said, look, it's not true. They are saying the president is doing well, perhaps is what is attracting these people, and other political parties are not putting their acts together. That's why people are just naturally leaving to where there's a bit of stability. Your party, the Labour Party, is one of the parties that have been pointed at, has not been able to put its acts together. I would like your response as well.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Sorry for the delay because of the internet. I will tell you sincerely, politics is a game of interest. I mean, every politician will use their tongue to count their teeth. So you're looking at an opportunity and a platform. By the way, let me say this clear for every Nigerian and everyone listening. Political parties are mere platforms. These are just platforms that take you to the place where you want to be. This is like an automobile. You cannot insist that you have to drive a Toyota, or you have to drive a Honda, or you have to drive whatever, Nissan or something. All you need to do is to get to the location. A lot of our political parties in Nigeria have similar ideologies. The ideologies are not very far-fetched. For us in the Labour Party, I know we have a distinct ideology. I know we believe different quite compared to other parties in the country. But for a politician to defect from one party to another, I don't think it's something new, and I don't think it should generate this much interest. It's a common norm. This is what makes democracy. This is what makes political parties. What makes people have options in political parties. I don't want to necessarily believe that it's because the APC is coercing or blackmailing people. It's a matter of interest and a matter of principles, and then where you see a better pedestrian or a better pedigree or a better platform for you to perform. Every politician at any point can defect to any party at any point. It has happened to everybody. The president did not start in APC. They came together to make what is called the APC today. They were all in different parties. People can be in different parties at some point in time and jump to another party at some point in time. It's a common thing in the politics of multi-parties. Like in Nigeria, we have multiple parties, so politicians can go to any party they want at any given time, as much as they are doing it constitutionally.
Sama, my apologies. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with the network where you are, but we'll try and see whether we can get one or two words before we close. Let me take it to Mr. Makri. Mr. Makri, it's a direct question for you. Depending on who you're asking, the answer is either yes or no. So whatever you respond, and you just give me maybe a 1 minute in terms of your response. Is the democracy safe in the hands of the current crop of politicians, including yourself, right now?
Well, I'm a Democrat, but yes, democracy is safe. But whether have we gotten the right people to drive the process of democracy as we speak at the moment? No, we have not gotten the right persons. That does not mean that all the persons that are found around the political structure today in Nigeria are not Democrats. No, they are Democrats. We have progressive and purposeful, politicians. Now, there are two things you need to know. We have two kinds of leadership. We have transformational leadership and also transactional leadership. As we speak, what we are faced with, the quagmire we are faced with today in this country, unfortunately, we are faced with the transactional class of leadership, which are always described as kakistocrats and plutocrats. When you have set of people, everywhere, incompetence is what is driving the process. And then you also have a group of persons who think that it's only their cronies, them and their cronies, should be around corridors of power. Of course, there's nothing you can get out of it. Okay. Until Nigerians decide and say a no, an end to the end of those class of politicians or leaders, that is when we will be liberated, politically liberated.
That's a fine place to anchor it. That's a very fine place. I know that you've always used the word kakistocrat and plutocrat. We're going to explore that word at another conversation because you sustain it for a very long time so that people can really understand where you're coming from. But I must thank you both, gentlemen. Bishop Makri is the YPP National Chairman. Daniel Asama is a member representing Basa, Jos North Federal Constituency in the House of Representatives. Gentlemen, I wish we had more time, but that's the much we can take. Thank you for coming, and thank you for being on the program.
Thank you so much, Geoffrey.
And that's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Have yourself a beautiful week ahead. Bye-bye.